Hello, this is a video looking at the music performed and played in the Queen's funeral, giving a little bit of backstory and just sharing this beautiful sublime music. The Queen was clearly a lover of great British classical music. She commissioned a lot throughout her life. She clearly loved that music. And as a British composer myself, I do have a very soft spot for the great British composers. So what I'm going to do in this video is try and open up some of this music so you can go and explore it. A lot of it that was played before the service on the organ, if you were listening, is orchestral music, so you may want to go explore that. So I'll give you the titles and you can go dive in. As Cezanne, the great artist, said, all art lies, but it points to the truth. And that's very true. The intellect and the mind is the bouncer of the heart, but music can penetrate to the very source of all things. So without further ado, let's go back and look at this rich tradition of classical music that the Queen had throughout her life, going straight back to, first of all, to the Coronation. So in the Coronation, she commissioned a number of pieces by British composers. So William Walton's Coronation March, Orb and Sceptre, also the Te Deum, and William Walton, close to my heart because he's a favourite composer of mine, and he was born only in Oldham, so not too far away. His first symphony is highly regarded. His number of concertos, the viola, the cello concerto, these are pieces for solo instrument and orchestra, are absolutely fabulous pieces. And he also wrote a number of choral works, chamber works as well, which are wonderful stuff. So I would investigate some of Walton's music. Elgar, not featured in the Coronation, but Edward Elgar wrote a nursery suite, which he actually wrote when he met the Queen when she was a child, which is a wonderful piece, beautiful stuff. Arnold Bax, who was the master of music back then, and I'll talk a little bit more about Arnold Bax, was a master of music back then, and he wrote a piece for her 25th birthday called Morning Song, Maytime in Sussex. But also there is a fanfare that he wrote for when the Queen and Prince Philip got married. Herbert House is a favourite of mine. One of the pieces commissioned at the Coronation was Behold, O God, Our Defender. Now, Herbert House is, as I say, a very favourite of mine. As you can see, I have the orchestral score for what is regarded for me as one of the great British pieces for me, Hymnus Paradisi. It's absolutely stunning orchestral piece for choir and solo singers. House's son had died very young, and it's like a requiem to that. It's an absolutely stunning piece. There was also a new piece by John Ireland, a great composer, wrote a wonderful piano concerto. And then, for me, very close to where I live is George Dyson, a British composer who also had a piece commissioned at the Coronation. So there's a few pieces of backstory. You can see how much the Queen actually loved British classical music and how much she clearly commissioned for a Coronation. Now let's go to the funeral and talk a little bit about that. So there was music before the service which was played by the organist. So some of these, but not all of these, of course, are arrangements, and it was played absolutely beautifully. So let me just pick out a few of my highlights. We had the Romanza from Vaughan Williams's 5th Symphony. So Vaughan Williams's 5th Symphony, and I've done a video analysing this symphony, so I'll share the link. Some people regard this, along with Edward Elgar's 1st Symphony, and maybe we could say Walton's one, as one of the great British symphonies, although there's 9 symphonies from Vaughan Williams, and they're all absolutely fabulous. So Vaughan Williams was featured at the beginning here, and as I say, he was a favourite composer clearly of the Queen. In fact, my old teacher used to write to Vaughan Williams when he was a boy, and he would write back and sign the letter VW. How wonderful, how wonderful. So then we have some more Herbert House, and then we had a little bit of Charles Villiers Stanford in the country, Opus 194. Stanford, an amazing composer, because Stanford taught so many of the British composers. I'm just looking at my list here. He taught so many British composers. So he was involved in teaching Vaughan Williams, Gustav Holst, Herbert House, E.J. Moran, another great composer. I love E.J. Moran's 1st Symphony. A wonderful piece. George Butterworth, Frank Bridge, George Dyson, Eugene Goosens as well. So it's amazing how much an influence Stanford had on the British sound, really. So it's interesting that he features in the opening of the Queen's music, considering that Stanford taught so many of these great British composers. We have a little bit more Edward Elgar, and we've got Malcolm Williamson. He was quite a controversial master of music, if I remember right. I think he was Australian born, but it's interesting that there's a nod there, and his music is featured in the opening. I think that's very, very, very nice. And then we finish with Sospiri by Edward Elgar, an amazing piece for orchestra and strings. With harp or piano, it can be substituted either or. That's a stunning piece. Right, let's see what else we've got now. I was absolutely so surprised to see that there's two pieces written specially for the service. So we have a new piece by Judith Weir, which is a setting of Psalm 42. So the Queen, like the poet laureate, has a master of music, and that would be a post that they would have until they died. But now I think, as far as I'm aware, it's for 10 years. So that here's a list of a few masters of the Queen or King's music. We've had Arnold Bax, Arthur Bliss, Malcolm Williamson, who I've just mentioned, Sir Peter Maxwell Davies, the great composer who lived up on the Orkney Islands, and currently we have Judith Weir, and she wrote a piece, I Love All Beauteous Things, for the Queen's 90th birthday. So it's wonderful to see that we feature a new piece commissioned. She must have worked very fast. Wonderful. It was. If you haven't heard it, go have a listen. It was absolutely sublime. So that's a piece by the Master of the Queen's Music, Judith Weir. Next, we had a little bit later on in the service, we had a little nod back to Vaughan Williams' piece, O Taste and See How, which was featured in the Coronation. And I just thought that was wonderful that we hear the choir sing that back from 1953. It was just beautiful to hear that piece by Vaughan Williams. Absolutely magical, and a nod back to the Coronation, which I think is absolutely wonderful. Going through a little bit further on, we then had another new piece. So this is another new piece by the Scottish composer called James Macmillan. Now I've been a follower of James Macmillan for many, many years. I've got many CDs here of Macmillan's work. Some of his early music was on the Abyss label, and this is his first symphony. He kind of shot to fame with a concerto that he wrote for the deaf percussionist Evelyn Glennie called Veni Veni Emmanuel, which is an amazing piece for percussion and orchestra. If you ever get the opportunity to see it, you should. It's a stunning piece. So Macmillan's piece was absolutely stunning. Who Shall Separate Us from Love? And it was beautiful, absolutely stunning. So there's a lot of music from Macmillan. There's a number of symphonies, piano concertos, solo works. You'll find he's such a great choral writer. In the Catholic tradition, there's a wonderful mass. There's all these, I'm just having a look through, let me have a look. Yeah, so you've got the mass, you've got the Stabat Mater, which is a recent recording, which I have, this was absolutely stunning. So Macmillan's music is absolutely wonderful. Another recent one, Seven Last Words from the Cross. His music is absolutely sublime. When Rowan Williams became the Archbishop of Canterbury, he wrote a new piece, I think it was called To My Successor, which again was commissioned. So Macmillan is a very special composer, and I would suggest investigating that. And I might step my neck out and say that he might be the next master of the King's music, but there you go, who knows. And then finally, let's just have a little quick chat about what was at the committal. So we featured composers. Ethel Smythe, the great British composer, she's been her music's very neglected, but in the BBC Proms this year, various pieces, The Wreckers, and various other works were featured, and such a great composer. We have Herbert House again, we have Vaughan Williams, we have Elgar's Nimrod, and we conclude with some Bach. So there you go, there's been an overview of some of the music. So I hope if you want to go swim in some of this beautiful sublime music, I hope you will. It's such a rich tradition, and it is a little bit neglected, the British music tradition. So thanks for the Queen for commissioning so much of this, and obviously being a great listener of that. And I know that King Charles himself is a great fan of this music, having played the cello and such like. So thanks for watching this video. Subscribe for more. Bye for now.